The game's outfit, Dying Light double review.
In a crowded survival zombie genre, Dying Light's refreshing mechanics are welcome, yet undermined through a by-the-books campaign and unrealized gameplay design. As the main man Kyle Crane, you are sent into Haran by the GRE to recover a rogue operatives file. Quickly you embed yourself with the goings of the quarantine zone, and are challenged to build your rep up within the community of survivors.
This leads to you willingly accepting each and every fetch quest known to man, in an attempt to get close to Rise, the game's main antagonist.
Right now we're in a period of innovative stories, and Dying Light is as straightforward as they come. Consider this Zombies the movie, the video game.
Characters are largely uninteresting, making missions less weighty when lives are on the line. Coupled with an inconsequential story that goes nowhere, Dying Light offers little to no narrative reward for your playthrough.
Although in my playthrough I enjoyed certain parts of Dying Light's story a bit more, it still felt largely predictable and uninspired as a whole. These moments of monotony are luckily supplemented by a very strong hand-to-hand combat system in Dying Light. Largely innovating on Techland's past work, Dead Island, Dying Light's combat system offers up satisfying blows as you slice, break, and mutilate your undead opponents apart.
Unfortunately, with the omission of analog combat, tearing zombies limb from limb felt unquestionably less satisfying. Compared to Bryden's experience, combat felt bogged down and clumsy when interacting with groups of enemies during my playthrough.
Unlike Dead Island, Dying Light also throws into the mix a largely successful parkour system in a similar vein to Mirror's Edge. The game's greatest moments are achieved through the system as you just jump from rooftop to rooftop in evasion. Largely intuitive, large jumps are nerve-wracking, and gameplay tension is raised overall by the pace that parkour brings to exploring.
Even though the parkour mechanics do manage to bring some of the game's greatest highs, it's still frustrating to miss a jump you definitely felt you should have made. One of Dying Light's most interesting yet underutilized features is its day-night cycle. At day, zombies are largely slow-moving and harmless.
When night falls, the role reversal activates as you, the player, become the hunted. Volatiles, which are arguably the scariest creatures in the game, come out of hiding and roam the streets. Stealth becomes key in these moments because you just don't want to be seen by these creatures. When successful, these chase sequences to the safe zones were arguably the best use of Dying Light's mechanics and tension put together.
The unfortunate part about these great moments is that they are underutilized within the game's own structure.
Think of it like an outcast teenager in high school. Dying Light seemed more interested in fitting into the norms of AAA gaming rather than exploring its own unique traits. Parkour is amazing, yet the game often chose to use these mechanics instead for slow Far Cry-like tower climbing sequences and room climbing puzzles as well. Combat is also hurt by a midpoint heel turn that introduces undercooked first-person shooting mechanics. Multiple missions then follow this introduction that place a focus on shooting rather than the developed hand-to-hand combat and personalized weapons that you've built over the past hours.
And as mentioned above, night-specific story missions are only a few, with one task truly being a standout. With not enough incentive to go out at night, there is no reason for the player not to wait at a safe house until morning.
This leads to Dying Light's fun being largely found outside of its own plot and narrative. The stories you, the player, create alone or with your friends are where you really get the fun out of Dying Light. Racing towards supply drops, destroying zombies by day, and playing cat and mouse at night are where I found myself having a great time. Gage though felt ultimately more negative than I did regarding this.
With weapons that inevitably break, a largely unhelpful crafting system, and unbalanced skill tree, my enjoyment in roaming combat was neutered and lacked a depth to keep me playing.
During our co-op playtime, we also experienced a detrimental bug that set both our level and weapon progress back to 0. We contacted Techland who said a patch is incoming to fix this problem. Luckily, we were able to recover from our earlier save with generic weapons, but still had to replay through roughly 45 minutes of the game's story. The main negative for us was that we lost our weapons that we crafted and some of the side stories that we created along the way.
Our experiences with Be the Zombie mode were also mutual. Dying Light's competitive multiplayer offered unbalanced gameplay in favor of the human players and lacked any real hook to keep us interested past a few matches.
The game's outfit verdict.
Dying Light manages to pull me in just as much as it pushes me away. With a group of good core ideas that are all poorly utilized, Dying Light ends up being a homogenized, lackluster experience. I give Dying Light a 2 out of 5.
Dying Light has something great in its core mechanics, but squanders the opportunity to create a special game by ignoring them. Without a compelling storyline or main mission structure, Dying Light is a missed opportunity that fails in trying to be too many different games. I give Dying Light a 3 out of 5.